Hi everybody. The two of us are going to read this story, Ruby the Rambunctious by Jose Carlos Andreas and
Lucia
Canario. Sounds like Spanish. Sounds like a Spanish name. Can't see me, can you? Ruby the Rambunctious. Ruby was a little girl who fell down a lot. She falls a lot, doesn't she?
Yep.
There's her, and there's the brother. Making a mess over there.
When she danced, she fell down. When she ran, she fell down.
When she went to the bakery, she fell down. Everyone thought she was clumsy. Her parents, her brother, her brothers, the baker, and even her.
Ruby's parents were worried about her, so they took her to the variety of different doctors. Finally, one doctor explained that their daughter's muscles didn't work well.
That's why she was always falling down. Ruby was so happy, she started dancing and singing. I'm not clumsy, I'm not clumsy, I'm not clumsy.
After that, her parents began acting very strangely. If Ruby jumped on the sofa, they said nothing.
But if her older brother snapped off the tip of his pencil on purpose, or if her younger brothers picked his nose, they'd get told off. Doesn't sound fair, does it?
No. Why don't you ever tell me off anymore? Don't you care about me? Then she had an idea. She took down her dad's favorite painting and drew all over it.
Ruby, her father shouted, and his face turned yellow, green, blue, and red. But a moment later, he just whispered, "That's okay, honey."
At bath time, Ruby brought her mother's tablet into the tub.
Her mother's face turned red, blue, green, and yellow. It's the sweetheart, she muttered softly. Then Ruby took deep breath and she shouted,
Just ground me already. Why don't you?
I don't want to be treated differently than my brothers.
Her parents' faces turned as red as tomatoes, as red as red bell peppers, as red as the apple from Snow White, which was very red. And for the first time in a long while, they started laughing.
Look, they're over here laughing. Then her little brother said, "But Ruby, you are different." Ruby's face went as white as milk. There was total silence.
But her little brother pressed on. You are different. You're the most rambunctious of us all. At that, Ruby started laughing and she chased him all around the room.
Oh boy. Running around the room. Then Ruby had to stop laughing because her parents scolded her for having wrecked the table, destroyed the painting, but she didn't mind because they were finally treating her the same as her brothers. Even though she was different, she really was the most rambunctious of them all.
More time passed, and Ruby's parents got her a wheelchair. She still falls down sometimes, but it's not because she's clumsy. It's because she's always moving a mile a minute.
There's her wheelchair.
A ramp was installed at the entrance of her apartment building so that Ruby could go in and out by herself.
Yep, see, there's the ramp going up into her apartment building so she can go in and out with her dog.
Sometimes they used the ramp as an outer space launch pad.
And other times it was the starting line for a wild and crazy race to school. Uh-oh. Things changed little by little, but Ruby is still the same. She is the most rambunctious one of them all. The end. Ruby the Rambunctious. This one's called 10 Beautiful Things. By Molly Beth Griffin, illustrated by Maribel Lee Chaga. Probably not saying that right, but whatever. Lily ran her fingers across the Iowa map. An X marked Grandma's house on an empty patch of land, Lily's new home.
Graham's car tires hummed against the pavement. Lily felt the vibration in her whole chest. Let's try to find 10 different things along the way, Graham said.
There's a cat, only one though. Lily turned her eyes to the window. There's nothing beautiful here, she said. She struggled to fold the map, so it wrestled into itself just right. You'd be surprised, Graham said.
And sure enough, at the very moment, the sun broke over the long horizon.
Yep, there's the sun. Lily gasped. There's number one, she cried. Right, you are, Lily, said Graham.
Fence posts rushed past. Graham flipped on the radio, trying to fill the silence.
Lily felt the complaints straight in her belly again, coming up her throat and nearly out her mouth. But then Graham shouted, Number two. A wind farm had sprouted in the field beside the freeway. Spinning windmill blades gleamed in the morning sun. There's all the windmills. Lily concentrated on the game and found number three real fast. Red-winged blackbird, perched on a swinging stalk of last year's corn. It was dark and bright all at once. Its beak wide open in a song they couldn't hear.
Later, Graham signaled and turned the car into a smaller road. 2 more highways to go, she said. Lily popped a handful of crackers into her mouth, but food did not fill up her hollow places. Graham cracked her window and rushed the air and sound and cold.
They crossed a bridge, and Graham chose number 4, the groundly sounds of melting creek.
Lily dozed off. She woke up when Graham tapped her knee and pointed out the falling apart barn. That's not pretty, Lily said. That can't count.
We're not looking for pretty, we want beautiful, Graham said. So it stood halfway to 10. So it's halfway to number 10.
At a rest area, Lily bounced out of the car, while Graham stretched her creaky body. Lily picked number 6. The smell of mud, she said. Inhaling. Graham shut her eyes and nodded slowly. It's earthly and rich, she said. I'd never really noticed.
Lily breathed in the mud smell and focused on just that. It poured itself into some of the empty spaces in her. Funny that mud helps people, but whatever.
Back on the road again, the car seemed smaller. The humming in Lily had stopped, but her legs wanted to sprawl, and her stomach was getting queasy.
We're on a roll now, Graham said, and she was right about that. 7 and 8 were easy, a cloud shaped like a swan, and a little brown calf that trotted beside the fence. There's the calf trotting by the fence.
Miles and miles later, they turned onto their last road, and the clouds began to draw close. The sky grew dark, and the earth rumbled. Suddenly, the air exploded in bright flashes. Cloud banks tattered, lightning back and forth, showing off.
Number 9, Lily whispered. There was no room for other words because of the lightning and thunder.
The storm took up the whole world, and it filled Lily up too. She was here with Graham, and for a whole minute, that was all that mattered.
On they drove almost there, not for now.
When they'd been almost there for a long time, Graham barked, eased the car down a crumbling driveway, and parked in front of the farmhouse.
"Here we be," she said, "though the drum of the rain. Home. But we only made it to 9, Lily said, slumping in her seat.
Nope. 10 easy. Graham came around with the umbrella, and Lily stepped out of the car.
"We're 10, Graham said. Lily sank into her family hug. None of this was easy. Maybe it would never be easy, but she belonged with Graham now. She belonged here now.
This place wasn't empty, and neither was she.
The end. 10 beautiful things. This one's called The Range Internal. Painted by Stephen Johnson and Lou Fanchier. Sounds French. One cold winter days in the Turtle Mountains, I helped Mama cook soup on our wood stove. The rangery internal bones went into the pot for the flavor, then potatoes and carrots. As I cut the onions, I held a kitchen match between my teeth, and I still don't know why, but the match stopped my tears. No two soups were ever the same. All were different. Right before we ate the soup, Mama took the bones out and gave them to Grateful Rex, the dog.
Rex chewed his bone beside the stove, the warm heart of the house. After the soup, my brothers chopped wood and hauled it into the big, deep wood box beside the door. Mama didn't think twice. Later that evening, as she reached for a split log with one hand, strided with the other, and kept the fire going. When I came inside from doing my barn chores in the early dark, I stood by the mica window and watched flames dance. My cheeks went hot, my hands and feet thawed and prickled until they hurt, and finally I stopped shivering.
There's the wood stove. The Ranger Eternal was printed in raised lettering on the blue enamel of the door. I learned to write by tracing those letters in the air. I copied them down with charcoal in the margins of Daddy's newspaper. I tried to teach Rex, but they rolled away comfortable in the heat and began to snore. At night I pulled my cot away from the wall and slept facing the fire as it died down behind the glass. Mama wrapped a hot stone in wool and put it into my bed. I pressed my feet against its fading warmth.
When I was tucked into the stillness, I was sometimes afraid. Huge winds beat upon our walls. In the thick breath of storms, I heard the footstep of Windling, the ice monster. At the window at the door.
When
Dingo
waited,
whenever my eyes closed, I was sure it drew near. The storm was constant, saving me.
the stove was constant saving me. The monster, wind claws and ice teeth would melt away before I could be hurt. As the shadow pulled light across the ceiling walls, I crept closer to the stove. Safe I looked, though it is door into pictures of a long ago. I saw the range of the buffalo who once covered the plains of North Dakota so thickly that they grazed from horizon to horizon. I ran the deer range, I ran the bear range, I galloped the range of horses, I looped the wolf range and fox range, the range of badgers, I flew the sky, the range of heroes, of cranes, hawks, and eagles. I saw the range of eternal. When I woke, the stove's heat was gone. Cold flowed in the blues of the room. The breath of my sisters in the rollaway was a feather standing above her lips. I could fiercely into myself and waited as Daddy got up, ready for his day. In the next room, when at last I heard the thump of boots going onto his feet, I knew it wasn't long before gray coals would blossom hot and red. Outside, Rex, whining, and hit the door with his front paws. He was no Wendigo. Daddy should rose over the stove as he fed strips of birch bark to the bottom of the firebox. He was no monster. He wouldn't melt. The bark bursted into light. I heard the kindling. He added start to snap before he carefully placed two split logs on the hot flames and closed the door before he went outside. Daddy opened the stove vents all the way and logs caught fire. The roar of heat was loud as wind but warm. The night's fear seemed small. It wouldn't take long for heat to flow around us. By the time we got out of bed, Mama was standing at the stove. With one hand stirred the oatmeal smooth. The other hand reached for salt, sugar, sometimes raisins. My favorite jam was made from June berries, dark with summer rain. As I stirred the sweet purple into my oatmeal, I was glad to think of hot days coming when we wouldn't have to walk to school. But Mama always had potatoes baking in the ashes. On those winter mornings, she'd give them to us before we trudged deep snow trails over 2 hills, down a little back road. We walked New Range, the Turtle Mountain Range, the range of woods and sloughs that we loved. We were glad for the feel of those potatoes. Heavy in our pockets, it kept our hands cozy, and later that morning as we ate them, we tasted the warmth once more. On their way to school.
And then one year, poles and wire went up along the road to our house. Now we could touch a switch and electric lights would pop on. Mama put away the wick lamps that burned kerosene. A new stove came down the winding road, chained onto the bed of a truck.
There's the truck with the new stove. Now we could turn a knob and heat would flow through a coiled burner. We hauled the old stove out into the yard. A crow landed on the hood, pecked the shiny nickel trim. Our dog Rex sat for an hour in its shade. Onto the back of the same truck, Daddy and my big brothers and sisters loaded. The range eternal. When the truck went down the road, the stove was still gleaming from Mama's polished cloth. The fittings glittered in the sun, and the crow followed, curious, until at last the truck disappeared over the hill. There's the old stove that disappeared into the...
At summer, we were glad to have a stove that did not heat the entire house every time Mama made bread. But when winter came, we missed the range eternal. Even though we now had a little furnace to keep us warm, there were no hot flashes, no ash-baked potatoes, no center to the kitchen, no warm stones for my feet at night. Even under many blankets, I shivered and Wendigo came near. Sometimes in the freezing dark, I woke to feel its laughing breath. I had to tell myself that I was imagining too much. I had to close my heart over my fear. I breathed beneath my covers, put my hands across my eyes and across my ears, my eyes. I fell asleep, and as I slept, I got older. I grew up.
Oh boy. He's in bed trying to stay warm. I am a woman now, married with my own job, a kitchen to come home to, and a stove where I can stand with my son, stirring soup in a pot. All seem completely, yet there are some times when I feel something missing. My son cries out in his dreams in the deep of the night. The wind breaks against the windows. I long for a center of true warmth. There they are, cooking in their pot for their soup.
It was not until I passed the broad window of a store that sold old things that I knew what I missed. The range eternal.
Oh wow, there's the old stove that they had back in the day. Now I sit by the stove on cold winter afternoons, sometimes as the dusk lowers. I do not switch on the lights. I watch flames pull shadows down the walls. I teach my son to enter the pictures the way I used to do. Even here in the city, I show my husband and son how the animals race back and forth across the walls to the horizon beneath a deep and dark sky. I keep the fire going. Together we see again the old range, the vast range, the living range restored. I keep the range eternal. There's the old range. Author's note. I have dim memories of this stove. The range eternal from early visits to my grandparents' house on Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota. My mother always spoke of the stove, shown here in a painting by my sister, Dr. Angela Endrich, with such affection, and many times regretting that after all the warmth it gave, the old stove was lost. I've tried to return some of the old warmth to her and hit this book. So it actually wrote about the Turtle Mountain Reservation. On the back of here, I ran the deer range, I ran the bear range, I galloped the range of horses, I looped the wolf range and fox range, the range of badgers, I flew the sky, the range of herons, of cranes, hawks, and eagles. I saw the range eternal. The end. Thank you for listening.